Got a great group on board. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, joins us in the first segment. I hear from him. He's always got a lot to say, a lot to offer, always brings a lot to the table. Vince Ferrara, second segment, the sports animal in Knoxville, part of the VOLS radio network. We'll check in what's going on up in Tennessee and talk some SEC basketball as well. Hour number 2, Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports from Athens, updates us on the latest movement in the aisles at Georgia. And in the fourth segment, Locked on Sunbelt, Schultz cast. David Schultz, the GOAT, checks in from Lafayette, Louisiana. We do this 6 days a week, 25 times a month, over 300 shows a year. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Let's go.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with Dudley Dawson of hogville.net. And Dudley, basketball season is, getting in full gear right now. Finished the NFL playoffs, a big chunk of them out of the way. Got the championship games this weekend. NBA basketball, your Celtics are playing along. And every day there's something about the portal. Who's moving, who's coming, who's going. Well, I looked up on, I guess it's 24/7 Sports to see from 4 years ago, there was, the top 3 players in Arkansas. Was it Isaiah Williams was the number 1 player? Number 2, Chris Moore from West Memphis. Number 3, Devo Davis, Jacksonville, Arkansas. Chris Moore and Devo Davis are still at their respective schools. I know Chris Moore is loved by the Auburn people because he's not quit. He's stayed. He's stuck it out. And the state of Arkansas puts out some damn good players. Devo Davis, been there. I guess this is his 4th season. Don't you think we're going to start developing a special affinity for players that stay with the school, even if they're not a superstar going forward? That's what I think is going to happen. I think the fans are falling in love with the people who love their school as much as they do.
Yeah, and I think you see the other side as well, where, the season, the way it's gone this year, has been a deal where when things haven't gone well in the basketball court, they start worried about mercenaries. Maybe is a word they use, that guys are just coming in here for the NIL. I mean, it's happening all over the place, not just Arkansas, but it's one of those situations that when things go wrong, you find things to gripe about. When things go great, everybody can do whatever they want. And it's been one of those situations this year where it just hadn't gone well for them. They had the big win against Texas A&M on the last second shot, then went out Saturday and basically, you want to say they didn't play well at all. And I think that's the case, certainly defensively. But South Carolina has turned out pretty good, and now 17-3, went down and obviously beat Kentucky the other night. But yeah, when you are losing, you can find things that are wrong. And one of them is that guys don't care enough. At least seems to be the narrative right now.
Well, you look at Arkansas, and tradition-wise, Kentucky has always been up there by themselves. And then Florida with a couple of national championships, incredible run. And then Arkansas. But Arkansas was good in the Southwest Conference with Eddie Sutton. They've grown up in Memphis. I've always followed Arkansas. And Eric Musselman had 2 Elite 8 teams in the last 3 years, and they both started off slow. What are the chances they're going to end up with a deep run in the NCAA tournament with this particular team?
I'll never say never. because Coach Musselman has shown the ability to snap them out of it. But they're 1-4 now, and the difference is his other teams have played hard, they've played defense, and I don't see that happening either. Either of those things happening right now, and so the optimism for a run is. Well, here's what I'm going to say. You can't have a big run if you're not in the tournament. And right now, they're not in the tournament. They've got a long way to go just to get on the bubble right now, especially because there's so many good teams in the SEC already.
Well, look at LSU. They were dead 3 years ago. Now in the third year under Matt McMahon, they're better. They're playing better, but they don't have near the talent Arkansas does. Last year, of those players on the Arkansas roster, there was Anthony Black, Walsh, bunch of really good players.
Four NBA of them guys. In the Four NBA, guys are currently on NBA rosters.
Yeah. And, Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, was on with us Monday morning. He said, Auburn is doing what they're doing. And I don't know if this is the best team Bruce Pearl's ever had, but they're the deepest. But he goes, I don't know if there's even an NBA player on this roster. You got to have the great players, but finding a way to get them to all play together. And then how much of it do you think is NIL distraction? I mean, I'm talking at any school. Let's say you're getting $250,000 and you're 18 years old. The losses don't hurt as much, I don't think.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It's pay for play. Has been these last few years. I would say that I think it's more about execution. It's more about probably putting a team together that just does not address all the needs that they have in the past. But yes, certainly a factor would have to be that everybody's worried about how much money they're getting, how much money the other guy's getting over here. As I said, when you lose, you can find distractions. You can make distractions. You can come up with distractions. Some of them might be true, some of them might not. But it's just one of those things. In these blowout losses they've had, they haven't seemed to care. And I think people can accept losses, but not losses in which it seems like the kids don't care. And that's really, true or not, that's really what the eye test is showing us right now.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, Audrey, my wife's a body language expert, and I've picked up on
Aren't all wives?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are. And she's a psych major and has a master's in elementary ed. So she's great at reading them. She says, they'll have a pout face, spreading the dreary wearies all over the place. Something about the pout fish. And that absolutely makes fans matter than anything. Is they want you to care and love their school like you do. Mm-hmm. And that's Eric Musselman. And again, you're a professional, and that's one of the great things I admire about you. You're not a fan, you're a true grit journalist. But he's a guy that, as a fan, you'll love him, his enthusiasm, his passion, and you expect his players to play that way. And I'm with you totally.
Yeah, I would say it search for, again, we go back to the losing thing, except there's a segment now who has decided that his personality is offending instead of something to wrap themselves around. It always happens. There's always been a lot of, I think, worry here that he would go back to the West Coast if things were going well, and UCLA, somewhere at some other place out there to coach. They're worried about that because things were going successful. Now, you hear a lot of, I just don't know if his thing is working here. And his thing has worked here to the benefit of a deeper run in the NCAA tournament since Coach Richardson's heyday, on a consistent basis, in the tournament and deep into the tournament. I understand the frustration, but every once in a while you have to take a step back. I'm real good at taking a step back. Fans are not, because that's the way they feel about their school. They say whatever comes to mind. I try to always think what I'm going to say. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes I blurt out stuff. But right now, if you want to run him off right now, I don't know what to tell you, because again, the success he's had here has been I don't want to say unprecedented, but unprecedented, in the last couple of decades at least, in terms of what they've had here. So, he'll get it right eventually. I just don't know if it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Calipari at Kentucky. I mean, their last national championship, 2012, and last Final Four, I think 2017. It's been a while. All right, question here from T, the problem. Ask Dudley, who was the last successful high school quarterback who played high school ball in Arkansas? I can think of some, but I want to hear your answer.
Well, does he mean that played for Arkansas? That's what I don't know.
I guess they came out of the state and played anywhere.
Well, Tyler Wilson is the immediate one that comes to mind. I'm trying to think of some others that have gone other places. I don't know that there's been a ton of just fantastic ones. Drake Lindsay is a kid that here in Fayetteville this year that is kind of regarded as the MVP after his team won the Class 7A championship. He's headed to Minnesota.
I know.
He's the grandson of Jim Lindsay, the former great player here, who went on to great success in the business world here. But there's not a lot of great quarterbacks. A lot of other positions, but not a lot of great quarterbacks that you think about. You go with Brandon Allen, Ryan Mallett. Was born here. Played in Texas. You could find a lot of different distinctions, but that's not a position that has produced great quarterbacks. Some really good ones, but not great quarterbacks.
Yeah, Tyler Wilson was the one exactly that I thought, and he was on the same team as a backup with Ryan Mallett out of Greenwood, right outside of Fort Smith. And I mean, look around you. In a given year, 15 to 20% of the starting quarterbacks on Division I rosters played their high school football in Texas. And the other one's California. It's just the law of large numbers. But look at the state of Florida. I mean, 23 million people. The Gators struggling, finding the quarterback league. It's a hard position to find players in. When we look at Arkansas right now in the SEC, you got to play at Ole Miss tonight. Chris Beard, they got off to a really good start, and they're not the only team that hadn't played a lot of quadrant one opponents up to this point. What do you expect Arkansas to do? How can they go get the win on the road? Pavilion is it's a tough place to play. And playing on the road against anybody in the SEC is difficult.
Well, first of all, look at you dropping that jargon, that basketball jargon. I expect you to say something about a net win anytime soon here, as well.
I was reading last night.
Chris Beard has certainly proven it to be a great coach over the course of time. Back when he was with ULR, now known as Little Rock, obviously great success at Texas Tech. He's always been very successful where he's gone. Hard-nosed coach, I think it's safe to say, who asks a lot of his players. Ole Miss has a lot of talent. They did do a great job in getting off to a start against the people that were put on their schedule. I always, get intrigued about why people say, well, yeah, but they hadn't played anybody. I don't care if you hadn't played anybody, you're 13. No, you're still 13. That's a good start, and you're eventually going to play some people in the SEC. Obviously Tennessee, kind of ended the dream, or at least postponed the dream of being a top 25 club. They're very good. We know they're very good in a great venue, which I didn't used to say, when you went to play at Ole Miss. They have a great venue now. It's going to be tough for Arkansas. I mean, nothing like being 1-4 in conference play and having to go to a really good Ole Miss team. And then Kentucky comes here on Saturday at 5 p.m. along with the game day crew. I can't believe there's a lot of 10 and 8 teams that get to host game day. But they haven't been here, and it's one of the things I think that crew wanted to do. It'll be madness around here, especially if somehow they're able to pull off a win at Ole Miss. But this is right now, this is a program which has been elite the last few years that is not being mentioned in that vein right now. And it all goes back to what we were just talking about, the amount of players who matriculate all over the place and not just stay one place.
Yeah. Well, and it's driving people crazy everywhere that these kids are coming and going. You read your text threads like I do of fans of different schools. What people are throwing money just up in the wind, hoping it sticks on some good player. But I look at SEC basketball and I say, okay, who's the best conference in the league in America? Big 12, Big East, SEC. Give me your top three, and then I want a top five from you if you'll do it in the SEC, because you've seen a lot of play. And next year, I don't know how different it's going to be with Texas and OU coming in, but they've got pretty damn good tradition as well.
Yeah, Big 12, I have to give, just from the eye test and analytics, the amount of people they have ranked, how hard it is to go play at every one of their venues, it seems like. So Big 12 is probably my top right now. Big East and SEC are both, have I think, claims to number two. But right now, I think I would probably go in this because of Auburn and Tennessee and Kentucky. I would put the SEC number two and the Big East number three.
Big East plays really good basketball. You and I grew up Big Monday. Remember the Big 12 and the Big East? There's Jim Boeheim retired after almost 50 years at Syracuse, but they put 40,000 in the Carrier Dome. I love college basketball. I'm going to guess your favorite sport since childhood is baseball, correct?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I've had two really long loves in my life. One of them baseball, one of them is Petra, my wife.
Yeah.
We first met in the fourth grade, but I first met baseball about when I was 4 years old. So it's been my longest love. So.
Well, and I'll tell you, the state of Arkansas is in love with baseball. Allie Prescott, who's been a Memphis sports figure for a long, long time, said one time when they got AutoZone Park going as a AAA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals, he said, you've got to think about our market. It's a couple over in Blytheville or Osceola sitting out on the front porch in the Delta, watching the sunset with a pitcher of Long Island tea or whatever, listening to the radio. Jack Buck, Mike Shannon, Anheuser-Busch saying, I mean, it's hard. We were over in Wilson last Saturday, and it's magic. And when I went to Auburn, and I mean the Braves all of a sudden take up all the oxygen in the room. But growing up in Memphis, man, I mean, it is a Cardinals town. And my friend Steve Phelan is listening right now. His cousin was Tim McCarver. And, he died this past year, was buried in at St. Michael's Catholic Church in Memphis, his funeral. And just how many people, grew up in Memphis loving that guy. He went to Christian Brothers High School, my school, played 22 years in the majors. And how many of those with the Cardinals? Almost all of them.
Well, yeah, Phillies obviously with Phillies, some.
Some, but most of them with the Cardinals. And I grew up, Bob Gibson has bronchial asthma, pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. That is, if you haven't been to Busch Stadium and where the Cardinals, it is one of the great holy cathedrals of all sports. How good are they going to be this year? Putting you on the spot.
Right now, I would say they're going to be better. Fangraphs, which is one of these things that throw analytics in there, see them as having the sixth best record in baseball this year, but that's only winning 87 games. I don't think you're great until you top the 90 win mark. I think if they would add one more starting pitcher or a big time reliever, I would feel much better. But I do think that adding back in the leadership, maybe not the bat, but the leadership of Matt Carpenter, who is somebody that Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldsmith went to bat for because they wanted to have him around for the culture and all that. I do think that's going to help, but I am under no illusions that they're going to run away with the NL East and do any more than the playoffs other than maybe get in there. But but I do like the fact that they went out and spent some money. I wanted to go back to the point you were making. Some of us sit, out in a lawn chair with the transistor radio and listen to KMOX at night. I've always been a words guy, a radio guy over TV. In fact, one of the things I'm doing right now when I fall asleep is this the CBS Mystery Theater.
Yes.
And I just love the written word turned into, to different stories. But there's certainly a place. But that's where my love for baseball grew, was listening to those games and imagining what was going on before I actually saw the pictures.
Yeah, and I've still got the little white transistor radio. It still works. I got it as a kid. It survived being thrown against the concrete wall at Liberty Bowl Stadium when I was in high school, when Auburn lost to Wake Forest. Pat Dye's first year, I was like,
they don't make them like they used to, as they say. They don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, and they don't. His thing is you're right. But so many stories have come out of that.
I was talking with my late mother one day, and I said, you probably didn't know that I had a transistor radio under my pillow listening to St. Louis play the Dodgers and San Francisco West Coast. She said, yeah, I did. I knew, but it just wasn't one of the battles I wanted to fight.
I just wanted to say, do you see this TV up here in my corner?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I've watched a few sports on that thing right there. Okay.
See,
okay.
I love that.
I'll never get rid of it. It's got dents in it on the front when I was just watching Bronco games as a kid growing up in Denver.
See, and that's the thing about it. I was just about to say, get Brendan to come in here. As sports fans, I mean, growing up, his dad, Buddy Martin, sports writer, you're everywhere. And I asked him about that picture in the background, Drive to Destiny. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday. 2 years in a row, Broncos go to Cleveland. And what'd you say they sent you, the Cleveland fans, Brendan, after that game?
Yeah, they sent my dad to our house. I think they sent us like 300 pounds of dog food just to the front door. I think Dad's opening article when he was in Cleveland says, I woke up this morning and I realized it was in Cleveland and it smells bad. I was like, man, you were really up front. And then they printed it on the front page of all the Cleveland newspapers the next day.
Nothing but trouble.
That's stepping into it.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Dudley, one of the things that I love is when people from our age group are talking about sports, it's the imagining part of it. You talk about going to bed at night with a transistor radio on. Brendan, growing up in New York and Denver and all over the country, and you get to be around these coaches and writers and fellow writers.
And athletes.
We're not – and athletes, and Terry Bradshaw and all these people. I'll say this. We're not going to lose it if we don't let that happen. And I'll tell you one thing, Brendan. One of my pledge brothers, Brian Keeter from Heber Springs, Arkansas, love the Keeter. Everybody does. His nephew, Trip Keeter, is in Heber Springs and has been on the show with us a couple of times recently. And I got to give a thumbs up. A lot of people talk about this now. They go, man, Dudley's really cool because he's offered to say, hey, when you get up in Fayetteville to a game, look me up. That's what I'm doing, but I want him to be mentored by someone like you because you really know what you're doing, Dudley. A lot of people told me about you.
I appreciate it. I certainly did it first, but I've learned as I go along. So I want him to learn some of the mistakes that I made and not make them along the way. But
he'll be back with us. I think but that Trip has told me, he said, man, that's really cool, Mr. Dawson. And I said, I said, but you mentoring people is critical. Like we've got the intern, William Halliday from the Auburn Plainsman as a sophomore. He keeps getting better and better and better with his writing. And I said, when you first came on the show, you had the old deer in the headlights thing. But I just remember as a kid getting to meet the writers when I was lucky in high school working in the press box with David Housel and Buddy Davidson at Auburn and getting to meet one of your guys you knew probably growing up, Jack Hairston of the Gainesville Sun.
Oh, my God.
When David Housel opened up the trunk of his car and it was a full bar. What you realize is that the sports writers, you think about growing up watching The Odd Couple, Jack Klugman and Walter Matthau. I mean, those great sports writers. And Dudley, like I said, I hope you do it till you're 100. And the writing, you're not limited in the length of a column, are you?
No, especially now that I'm with Hogville. When I was with Hogs Illustrated magazines, you certainly fill up the spaces around the ads. We know full well that's what that's about. Just end with newspaper. Yeah, but Hogville and FearlessFriday.com, our high school site, allows me to write as much as I want to. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad. I can add too much at times. Brevity is sometimes what you need, but longevity is sometimes what I do.
Have you found, Dudley, that because I own GatorbaitMedia.com, which used to be a magazine, and Franz Beard, my dad buddy, and Lauren Meadows and some other writers, I've seen, because I run the site and I post all the blogs. I hate calling them blogs, by the way, because there'll always be columns to me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a blog. That, by the way.
Them newfangled terms.
Yeah. A blog. It's like, I don't even know. A blog is just like somebody who's like not done all the work. But when I post a long form column, there is a different audience, right, that likes that. And it's funny because that audience is like my 5 a.m., 6 a.m. audience. They're the newspaper readers that got up in the morning, had their coffee, and they like to get it, their email and put it, and they like that long form thing. Franz Beard does a thoughts of the day every day, but it's like a Gator Sports thoughts of the day. But it's like, it's a notes column, right? It's been around forever. But it's funny to see some of these younger readers, really come back to the written word. Because that's where you really get, you can watch all the ESPN, you can watch these shows and all that stuff, but you want really good water cooler conversation. Yeah. Start reading, really start to ingest it that way. And I think we see a resurgence of that at times as people really, seem to want that. That's why I like about the online space, especially for sports writers, because it kind of, it gives you, buddy, my father was done, but he thought he was done about, 12 years ago. And then I shifted him over, to this. It's sort of like he's seen this, a whole resurgence of his career online and a whole new audience, which I think is fun.
Yeah. There's a couple things on that. I hate the term clickbait. That to me is something when you basically are saying you're just trying to get somebody to hit whatever you put in the headline of the post. But I have acquiesced to where over the years where I still love to write the long in-depth stories, but also I do on our site tidbits, which seems to be very popular. Some of them don't want to know, especially the new audience, doesn't want to know all he said. You tell me what he meant. And so I try to do that with the tidbits, or at least guess what they meant, from talking to other people. So you try to acquiesce, and I'm going to try to keep using that word to get 50 points in Scrabble. I think, but you got to adapt. But man, I know your dad's, probably and others the same way. Some of these things just drive me nuts. On social media. It
does. Yeah. Well, I have a saying. Well, if you start getting a lot of haters, you're doing something right.
I know.
That's when you're hit. That's when you're getting popular.
Yeah.
If you got a lot of people, you got a lot of lovers, you probably aren't as popular. So so I tell that don't read the comments. Don't get into it, because especially in sports, you're going to get that negative, other fan and another team or whatever it may be. And everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's like hiding behind some handle, with their name or whatever it may be. But that's sort of like, the fun of it all. And it's like, it's whatever voice you choose to put in your head that reads that comment or whatever. I always say, like, just give it right back to them, I'd be like, well, you're just dumb and you don't understand anyway. So that's your problem.
Well, I once told a guy on the radio that to tell his wife/cousin hi for me. So.
Well, the cool thing is that Vince Ferrara is going to join us in just a second from the Sports Animal in Knoxville. And Brendan, just let us know when we need to take a break. But I like what you said. I call them columns. Now, the original blogger, I remember my friend Mark Green, the late Mark Green, loved him. Died March of 2010. He was the original blogger inside the Auburn Tigers magazine. He would write things in the Furman Bisher model, of two great armies, met on the battlefield today in the hallowed caverns of Jordan-Hare Stadium. And as the sun set, Furman Bisher, great writers like that. That's who you need to be looking at. And I know everybody has their favorite writers. And go ahead and bring Vince in, the Sports Animal. And he is up in Knoxville where they got a pretty good thing going with Tennessee right now. And Dudley, I love it. You call it a column, don't you? When I read your stuff, I read Franz Beard's Daily Thoughts in the morning. It's kind of show prep. It isn't just if you're a Gator fan, it's if you're a fan of college sports, you can get a lot. Let people know. I know we get the logo.
One of the things you really have to stress to people, I think, is the difference between a column and a story. A lot of them, fans over the years have said, you know what? I think you should have said more about what they're not doing in that column. I said, that's not a column; it's a story. I'm just telling detail. I'll let you know if it's a column because the word "I" will be all in it.
Yeah. Okay. Column, story, but I like to call them, or people say an article. We have Philip Marshall comes on here. He's been writing now 55 years. Philip is a guy that if you say something stupid, it's going to be pointed out. One thing that you learned, Vince Ferrara, the Sports Animal up in Knoxville, also part of the Tennessee VOLS Sports Network. And we're talking with Dudley Dawson of Hogville.net. One of the things that you learn is to not overreact. And that's critically important. So, and I'm glad now we've got our executive producer, Brendan Martin, down at the headquarters in Ocala, Florida, the limestone capital of the world. I found out from my friend Maury Gaston, one of our regular viewers every day, the reason that's the horse of the World Equestrian Center, is that the limestone in the soil down there is so good for horses. So that's why they're all there. So anyway, a little bit of trivia. Brendan.
Sorry, my lawn guy just showed up and he's just making a bunch of noise. So I had to dip out there.
Better than the cable guy showing up twixt 1 and 5.
Look, man, I am the cable guy around here. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, Vince, been talking SEC basketball right now, talking a lot with Dudley about Arkansas basketball. You're following one of the hottest teams in America, ranked 5th or 6th, depending on Kentucky might be 6th, Tennessee 5. How good is this Tennessee basketball team right now? Because it's just kind of an annual deal with Rick Barnes.
It is, but we've talked about it a little bit, Rob, and thank you again for having me on. You got a new fancy setup here, so I'm liking it. Appreciate
got our producer. Thank you for being part of it.
Well, Tennessee is different in that they have an elite scorer that's playing at an All-American level in Dalton Knecht, transfer from Northern Colorado, and no one expected him to be this good. The question was when Rick Barnes brought in Knecht and Jordan Gainey, another group of 5 transfer or mid-major transfer as well. When those guys came in, would Rick Barnes let them be offensive players that can help a team that was so defensive-centric and was missing consistent offense and scoring that could get a shot when you're going through shooting slumps in a game, and somebody could get you out of it or go get you a shot at the end of a shot clock and create. Knecht had those skills, Gainey as well, but Knecht has been allowed because he was willing to be coached hard, the reason why he came to Tennessee, and because he has been a willing defender that has gotten better and put in the work there. He's also improved as an offensive player, and at times Barnes has ridden him, especially when they get down or they get in those droughts. So all of that is working out perfectly and so much better than a lot of fans that were skeptical about Barnes bringing in an offensive player. Oh, same old, same old. They brought in offensive players before, but he is all about defense, and then they're never what they were offensive players. So he brought in this offensive player, and now he's better. So that's a big part of it. Another reason why they're different is because they answered another preseason question, and that's low post scoring.
Okay.
Jonas Adu, so long as a big athletic, he is the bounciest big they've had in a while. And I've said for years that I thought they needed that. Somebody that could quickly get up off the floor and go get you a putback, score around the rim, block a shot. They didn't have that kind of athleticism inside, and now they do. And Adu has developed tremendously offensively. Now teams are like Alabama game planning to try to stop him. So they're willing to get up and down in transition. They're driving to the basket with threats to score at the rim, and they have low post scoring. They have an elite scorer. All those things are different than the defense that's always there for Rick Barnes in the past.
And obviously I've been friends with Jimmy Dykes for a long time. He was a walk-on at Arkansas and Ready Sutton when I was a manager. And I think he made a point the other day that I really believe, although we'll see once we get there, obviously Coach Barnes gets criticized for his postseason. And once by that, I really do think this team is built to succeed and have a deep run in the postseason because of a lot of the things that Vince just went over there. And boy, you talk about hitting on a guy, Dalton Connect, and just you got to love the name too. Dalton Miss would be, it wouldn't be right. But Dalton Connect is just, I love watching them play. I've always loved watching them play because if you grew up under and then was on the bench with Eddie Sutton, you love defense. You love the things that Coach Barnes has had there. But everybody's right there explosive this time, and you used to have to go try to win 60, 59 games against them. 59, 60 ain't gonna get it now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Vince and Brendan, let me know when we got to take a commercial. I don't know if you saw that thing I sent you.
You can just toss to it, Rob, whenever you want.
Yeah, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back. And I'm going to start with Vince first, and then go back to Dudley. Y'all's top 5 SEC teams right now, and give me also a surprise that you think might close real strong. We'll do this right after this quick break on Wednesday's edition of Sidelines.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with this great panel here. Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net up in Springdale in the northwest corner. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville, and our executive producer, Brendan Martin, down in Ocala, the limestone capital of the world.
I don't know if we can go with limestone capital, bro. We got to go with horse capital. There's more Kentucky Derby winners come out of here than Lexington. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is truly the horse capital of the world.
Yeah, the limestone, man. All right, Vince, let's get your top 5 teams in the SEC basketball right now. I mean, and that's fluid, but it does look like it may be a little top heavy.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a top four. And I think from that top four, then it kind of gets a little bit cloudy, even though the records don't necessarily reflect that. So I'll start from number 5. We go 5-1. And number 5, I have South Carolina. Them upsetting Kentucky was a surprise to me. Granted, it was on their home court, but for them to get that win and move to 4-2 in conference or 16-3 overall, they are better than what I thought they would be. Cooper, I think 20 points. So they're more athletic, and so I gave them a nod at number 5. And number 4, I still think Alabama is one of the best teams in the league. Tennessee was a reality check for them in terms of physicality. And Nate Oates in the postgame said, hey, they were tougher. They were more physical. We weren't prepared for them. You can't prepare for them because of the physicality. You can't duplicate it. You can't duplicate their personnel, whether it's Ziegler or Connect or Adu. People just don't have guys like that you can run scout team on. But they still have a lot of firepower with their three-point shooting and their drive ability. Nate Oates said, hey, we went through this last year. We got a wake-up call with physicality last year. We went on to win the league. So not going to bury Alabama just yet. So I have them at number 4. Number 3, I still have faith in Kentucky. I was surprised by their loss to South Carolina. I still think this is the most stable Kentucky team Cal has had in a while. Has athleticism, has transfers. They had a really good, tough game with Florida. They were able to win and get to the finish line on. I don't think they have as much up and down, even though, like I said, last night surprised me. So I have Kentucky at 3, 2 Auburn, being undefeated at 5-0. Haven't had the toughest of schedules as of yet.
Correct. Yeah.
The schedule will toughen up, as will Tennessee, but you got to give them credit for 5-0. And I think from the eye test and what their makeup is, I'll say Tennessee at number 1 at 4-1. They will have tougher tests, but their first tough test, Alabama, they passed that, and they'll have the Kentuckys and everybody else coming up in the second half of the year. So that's my top 5.
Okay. Dudley?
Well, I will say this. Lamont Paris is doing a great job down in South Carolina, and I want to do this. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of Stephen A. Smith, especially when he's talking about the Cowboys. But as he said, this is a fluid list. This is a fluid list when he does his top 5. I'm going to put, I think, 2 South Carolina there at number 5. They may be better than that. After these last 2 games I've watched them, he certainly has them playing great, and they, unlike Arkansas, hit on some guys coming in. And, so I think that, that they've really been that's a situation where you have to just give them a lot of credit. Then, I'm sure about number 5. I would probably go right now because of what Biz just said. Tennessee 1, Auburn 2, Kentucky 3, and then who am I leaving? I'm having a brain.
Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama at number 4. So our lists are I think maybe exactly alike.
Yeah.
I do give South Carolina, going back to how old I am, those radio guys used to come on and say, this song's, number 15 with a bullet. Well, I think South Carolina is number 5 with a bullet and could sneak in there. They were so impressive. They were more impressive than Arkansas was unimpressive on Saturday in that win. They just did everything right. They play as a team. They may not have as individual talent as a lot of the same as the others, but I do think that, I am very impressed with them. Very impressed with them.
Yeah. Well, looking at this league, the SEC, it started about 7 or 8 years ago. A lot of these elite players in the Southeastern Conference footprint had been leaving and going to ACC schools. It's like there's an iron curtain up now. And I know we are myopically focused on the Southeastern Conference. And somebody asked a minute ago here, Dudley, the problem is Acquiesce near Little Rock. No, it's closer to Hardy, I think. We use these fancy words on here. But I want to start.
It's over Balch.
Yeah, it's near Balch. And Blue Jays, by the way, great steaks Fridays and Saturdays, baked potatoes, sweet or unsweetened tea, and unbelievable pies. I'm going to make a book about all my favorite small restaurants off the beaten path, and Arkansas has got tons of them. But let's get Vince. What's going to happen? The ACC. I know football is what makes the grass grow, but basketball is what everybody in the country associates with in the ACC. The SEC, its rise is the demise of the ACC, in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of basketball, I think those brands will still carry them. Yeah, it's not what it has been in the past, where you had an absolute lock every year of Duke and North Carolina, and they were carrying the banner for your league. So they got to get them back to being that kind of a level, even though they're still pretty good. They're just not the dominant rivals at the top of the sport like they have been in the past. So that's where I think, just from a perception standpoint, it hurts them. But it's the bottom of the league when you have Louisville, who's been a great brand in the past, continuing their struggles. Notre Dame was another one they could rely on. Pitt used to have good years. Those kind of things. I mean, it's just not what it used to be. And when you have new teams that have some of your better records, even though they're not spectacular, people are going to wonder just how solid a ground that is. But I don't think the SEC is so strong that it dwarfs the ACC or makes the ACC look bad.
Yeah, okay.
That's more of a football issue, I think, right now than where there's a gap than basketball. The records aren't great, but the SEC still has to. They're going to play each other, so some of those records are going to come down in the second half of the year. So I don't see that as a big basketball issue, Rob.
Okay, Dudley.
I have to agree with him. I think that as far as football, I think the ACC. The Florida State debacle, which was not that they lost bad in their bowl game, but the fact that everybody just left the building. To that, I think that that is a narrative that everybody's jumped on, but I'm not so sure how good a league that's going to be in terms of football. We'll go back and check that next year. I think Norval's done a great job, but basketball wise. It's I think if you get North Carolina State back to where they're really good, I think Steve Forbes is doing a really good job at Wake Forest. They didn't play as well as they wanted to last night against North Carolina, obviously in a big game. But I do think that the potential to be a dominant conference is there again because of their so-called blue blood status. So I think that the Pac-12 is the one that the Conference of Champions, as Bill Walton puts it, is a conference of two right now, or at least next year to this point. And they're doing those two schools are doing scheduling alignments with the Mountain West and all that. That's the one that is in trouble. Obviously, not running any scoops there.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I've been saying this a lot. I think in 2 or 3 years they're going to be a push by those conferences to say, you know what, let's go back to our old model and just put football out there by itself, because once a week is not so bad. You got volleyball and baseball, and you've got swim meets in the middle of the week. That's going to be crazy going across the country. And I just. But then again, the NCAA, these conferences, I think that we're going to have the 4 big conferences plus Notre Dame. We're going to have 65 schools. That's kind of where we're going to go. Vince, I got to ask you now on Tennessee football. What's the date for spring practice to start? When is the spring game? Because, and we hadn't even gotten into Tennessee baseball, which you're part of the VOL network. So kind of quickly touch on both. We got about 9 minutes left, and love having you on here talking about this, and you and Dudley both. I love this banner back and forth between someone who covers Arkansas as closely as he does and you, Tennessee. But the thing about both of you is about the rest of the teams in the league in the national picture. So what a great place to tap in to your brains.
Well, appreciate it. Always fun to be on with Dudley as well. The spring practice date hasn't been released as of yet. Typically, it's going to be in the middle of April, and there's been ongoing construction at Neyland Stadium. Usually this time of year, I don't know if they will be in the middle of things with another significant stretch or not. I had not heard that. So I know baseball with Lindsey Nelson, we'll get to that in a minute. They moved their fall games to other sites because of all the construction, and that'll be a yearly thing too. So the big thing with football, just real quick, Rob, has been recruiting in the transfer portal right now. Yeah. Tennessee got a 5-star quarterback in Georgia McIntyre from Brentwood Academy in the Mid-State, and he picked Tennessee over Alabama. So he was at Saturday's Tennessee-Alabama basketball game sitting next to Josh Heupel, watching Tennessee beat Alabama in hoops. And then he picks Tennessee over Alabama in recruiting as a 6'6", 5-star, one of the highest rated in the nation. So now they have 3 elite quarterbacks, class after class, lined up under Josh Heupel. Nico, of course, from last year's class, 2024 Jake Merklinger, who was a high 4-star and played at the Polynesian Bowl, where the Vols had 5 players, including the offensive MVP and Mike Matthews, a 5-star wide receiver from Georgia. Second year in a row, Tennessee has had the offensive MVP. And then this year with George McIntyre for the 2025 class, they picked up an absolute must offensive lineman, offensive tackle, Lance Hurd, a 5-star originally. He played his freshman year at LSU. Tennessee picked Tennessee over Oklahoma. That was a must get at that need position. They probably still need a couple of more linemen with one more position up in the air. And then they picked up a defensive lineman from Stanford, Jackson Moy, as well. So continue to add in the portal. Recruiting has gone really well. Nice stretch for Tennessee in terms of football news here recently, but TBD on that spring game day. In baseball, I think it's 23 days. I want to say 23 days to the start of the baseball season, 23, 24. And then this team is going to be really good. Number 3 in the transfer portal rankings, according to D1 Baseball. Number 1, Wake Forest, who has former Tennessee pitcher Chase Burns on that team. Just like last year, LSU was number 1 in the portal rankings, number 1 in the preseason rankings. Same with Wake Forest. Number 1 in the portal rankings, number 1 in the preseason rankings. And so Wake Forest will be a lot to deal with, but Tennessee will be really good. You know, the typical at Arkansas, LSU, Florida, all the typical usual suspects going to be great again this year. And then Todd Helton, a former Tennessee star, 2-sport player, of course, is there with Peyton Manning in the football complex on the football team. And man, just what an elite player for the Rockies, and finally getting in with enough votes to get selected to Cooperstown and the Baseball Hall of Fame. So that's another big baseball story last night.
Yeah, only the second SEC player in history, because, I mean, Frank Thomas, believe it or not, was the first one from Columbus, Georgia, Columbus High School. Dudley, real quick, this SEC baseball, I mean, Arkansas, every year, I mean, you know, Razorback Balm Stadium, it's one of the – it's unbelievable, 12, 15,000 people out there. Typical Arkansas baseball team, gonna, you know, Omahogs. Is that the goal?
Yeah, they obviously number 2 and number 3 in some early polls. Like Eminem says, I'll lose myself in the Baum-Walker Stadium for the 16th when Arkansas opens with a 4-game set with James Madison, and they'll go to Globe Life Stadium and play Michigan, Oklahoma State, and Oregon State, which will be fun down there. Wow. But you know, I obviously got a really good portal group as well. You know. They're obviously going to be a really good team. It'll be fun to cover this year. Football is there's all the excitement that you would think off a 4-8 season. You know, it's a situation where they did some good things in the portal. Obviously, got some good high school recruits, but I think the biggest addition over the over the course of the offseason as far has been Bobby Petrino, and people are hoping that there's some magic left there that he can revive the offense. You've certainly got different quarterbacks now. The defense, I don't worry about. The co-defensive coordinators here really did a good job last year, and they've added some defensive line. And the thing is, the portal was going to slow down there for a minute, and then Nick Saban decided to retire, and people started switching jobs. And then I found out about this rule that 30 days you could transfer. You get the opportunity. So they're still bringing in guys and visiting stuff. So that'll be a good situation. And then as basketball, if we're summing up everything, 2 games this week. At Ole Miss, hosting Kentucky. You're 1-4. Your people are on the ledge right now, getting ready to jump off. This could be the week that they fly through the air. Or, if you're Muslim, if you could somehow get to 3-4, then they would get to a situation where people would come back and quit saying, "When does baseball start?"
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about it, schools like Tennessee and Arkansas, you're good in so damn many sports. But I mean, obviously football is the one, because look at the crowds. I mean, look at the bills that it pays. And so, hey, we're going to have to take a break. We got Jordan Davis-Hill coming up in just a second from 24/7 Sports, who covers Georgia. But Vince Ferrara, absolutely love having you on, as we do Dudley, both of y'all together. Really appreciate y'all. I love to kind of roll the guests in together because you get such a unique perspective. It's as Brendan calls it, people love to drill down local. And what we're doing with Sideline Sports Network, we want to do more and more where people can come here and drill down and say, I want to know about Arkansas. Who's my guy? It's Dudley Dawson. Tennessee, Vince Ferrara. And thank you, Jimmy Himes, when he kind of quasi-retired March 31st. He said, I got a great one for you, Vince Ferrara. He wasn't kidding, man. And, I mean, hey, Brendan, he was at his mom's house back in Tampa, where he's from, Mama Ferrara's kitchen. That just makes me drool about it. I love Italian food and I love Cajun food. My favorite.
I just love food. Just food in general. I love Southern and any kind of food that has a Southern twist to it. I'm into it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, what are we, 9 days from baseball, by the way? Hey, we get excited for baseball down here too. In
training,
yeah, 9 days. So.
9 days. It's
times.
9 times.
9 times. Well, Gators are looking good this year, so it's gonna be exciting. SEC.
Well, we're
SEC
lucky.
Play.
We get to talk about it every day. I mean,
my yard guy doesn't he know we're on the air? I sent him the thing.
We did a show a couple of years ago down in Lake Martin, and someone had the leaf blower going. We were out lakeside, beautiful setting, and then the guy starts right when we went on the air. There's one of those things. But look, Dudley, thank you so much. Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Listen to these guys, follow them, support them. This is a populist movement on the Sideline Sports Network. We're going to have y'all on next week together again. If you'll do it, love it. We'll take a quick commercial break. Be back with Jordan Hill. Lauren, what do you got? And talk some Georgia Bulldog football and maybe even a little bit of basketball and everything right after this quick commercial break. Thank y'all.
All right. Peace out.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Jordan Davis Hill joins us over in Athens, 24/7 Sports covering Georgia. Brendan Martin, our executive producer down in Ocala, Florida, GatorbaitMedia.com and the Buddy Martin Show. So, look, Jordan, this portal stuff is going on, and I made a comment that you looked at the guys leaving Georgia. There was, before the bowl game, there was like 5 stars, 8 4s, and 3 3s. That might have been a number one recruiting class in the country of incoming players, but Georgia still goes out and gets the number one recruiting class. And this team, year after year, is built on guys that want to be at Georgia, but they do go into the portal. Kind of give us an update on what Georgia's looking for, what their needs are, and the progress they're making in addressing those needs for football, because spring practice starts in probably 2 weeks. We're going to have somebody announce to start in spring practice, so we won't have to go long without football, kind of like a fish out of water gasping for air. It won't be that bad.
Right. Yeah. Georgia went in the portal. They were able to add some guys. There was a big miss on Friday. It looked like they were going to get Caleb Downs from Alabama. If they would have paired him with Malachi Starks at safety, that would have been, just not fair, honestly, to opposing offenses. But he winds up picking Ohio State.
Yeah.
They went and got a defensive lineman, Xavier McLeod from South Carolina. To me, defensive line and edge especially are two areas that they've kind of needed to address and are still sort of waiting and haven't been able to. Now, you may be able to after spring practice when more guys go in the portal, but they've done a good job really at receiver, I think, has been an area they focused on, and that's sort of been their go-to the last few years, has been adding portal guys from, at the receiver position. They did that 2 years ago, Rara Thomas and Dominic Lovett, and they've done it this offseason. London Humphreys, Michael Jackson from USC, who doubles as a punt returner. Also got a big body, Colby Young, 6'5", a New York native who was playing at Miami the last couple of years. So they've done a very good job in the portal. Again, if we see them add more guys, it would probably be either during the period after spring practice, or I think it would take, a team like Michigan, those guys could go in the portal if Jim Harbaugh winds up leaving. And maybe they try to pick something from Ann Arbor. But I think they're probably done with the portal for now, and they've done a pretty good job of addressing some needs.
Yeah, I would hate it if I were a Michigan fan. This ridiculous nightmare. I mean, they win the national championship, and their coach is just publicly dating other people. I mean, are they still married? It looks strange.
Oh, I think they're done.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I think they broke up.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. I mean,
He's going to a professional.
Yeah.
If it was on Facebook, the relationship status would say it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. That's right. I don't know what I'm going to do. Jordan, you're looking at the SEC, and I looked at this list of players that went to Ohio State, and somebody put up on here the problem. Texans rookie quarterback, they're talking about C.J. Stroud, a California kid that played at Ohio State, has donated $1 million to the Ohio State NIL cause. I'm sure he met with his accountant, and it was like, either pay the taxes on it or give it away. I mean, what's in it for me? But that's crazy. The kid, he's barely even, out of college. He's making a lot of money. But Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Downs, Seth McLaughlin, all these SEC guys have left. Isaiah Bond, who makes the gravedigger catch to beat Auburn, is on the roster at Texas now. Hugh Freeze gets rid of both coordinators. Cadillac's gone. Zach Etheridge is gone. You really got to keep a ticker going to see who's coming and going. But the one constant, Georgia, is intact. Maybe that's why y'all are the dominant program in college football.
Yeah, they've been lucky to date that, they have not had a whole lot of departures. They've lost some guys to the portal. I don't think anything that's just been, crazy. I'd say probably the most surprising was Jamon Dumas-Johnson. Still a little too early, I think, to say for sure that Georgia's intact. I want to see once these NFL jobs start getting filled. I think Georgia's going to be in good shape. I don't think they would lose a guy like Glenn Schumann. He was connected last year to that Eagles job, and a lot has changed for Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, since then. At that time, he could afford to go in and go try to lure a guy that's never coached in the NFL and say, hey, come run this defense. Now you're looking at a situation in Philadelphia where, I thought there was a real chance he was going to get fired. So I think the last thing he is going to do is say, I'm going to gamble with a guy that's never coached in the NFL. But I say that to say, it's not a sure thing yet. We'll see if someone comes calling in the NFL for some of these guys. I know that not only Glenn Schumann, I think Brian McClendon, there were some overtures last year with the Baltimore Ravens when Todd Monken was hired. So we'll see for sure, when it comes to the coaching staff, once all those NFL jobs are filled, all those assistant coaching jobs are filled. But from everything we've heard, guys love being on that staff at Georgia. They love the buy-in that it takes, and they work a lot, but they get paid a lot of money. If you look at T-Rob, who just came over, I think his deal's worth like $1.3 million to be the co-defensive coordinator. So, the buy-in like that makes it a whole lot easier for those guys to stick around and work the way they do.
Is Kirby going to be the next Nick Saban? Is he the next guy? We're all hoping he would just take an NFL job and go away. So,
I think it's funny, and maybe the next time we get Kirby, I'll ask him this. You never hear his name with NFL jobs. You'll see rumors. An Alabama fan 494 on Twitter say, "Oh, he's taking the Cardinals job or whatever."
Going to Atlanta.
He's never mentioned as a real candidate, and he coached for a year with Nick at Miami. I believe Kirby was a safeties coach, and I think that was the last year before Nick left for Tuscaloosa, and Kirby went with him. But yeah, he's sticking around. People thought, could he look at the Alabama job? And I didn't think that was ever possible, and I think that bore out. I think if he is coaching, he's coaching at Georgia. Really, the question is more so, how long does he want to do it? Because truthfully, I don't think he's someone who wants to be a Nick Saban and coach till he's 72.
Yeah.
I think Kirby's going to retire much younger than that. And it's kind of, he's won enough now. He can coach as long as he wants to, and he'll roll with it as long as he decides to.
Jordan, I wanted to ask you real quick about, sorry, Rob, I just want to ask you about, so Trevor Etienne from Florida, then obviously hit the transfer portal and then ended obviously as at Georgia. What kind of, you think he's going to, obviously he played a ton at Florida. What is his role going to be, as far as, going forward?
I think he'll be the starter. That's not guaranteed, but he's walking into a situation where Georgia lost their top 2 rushers from last year. And his competition is going to be Andrew Paul, who's a guy that played a little bit, but was just a redshirt freshman that got hurt the year before. Branson Robinson, who didn't play at all this past season because he hurt his leg before the season during fall camp. Roderick Robinson, who was a true freshman this past year, played sparingly, and then 3 true freshman running backs are bringing in. So, it feels like he is very much clearly the number 1 option, but, he'll have to earn it. I've seen from some people from Florida, I didn't get to see him a ton while he was a Gator, but some people said, he's not the best pass protector. Well, if he's not, he's going to have to get a lot better because that's something that they prioritize with the running backs.
Well, his size comes into play, I think, with that, and I think.
Right, for sure. But I think he's very clearly, expected to be the number 1 back. They got other options, but none nearly as proven as he is.
Nobody's had a running back room like Georgia in the last 10 years. They just back after back. And a couple of years ago, they had 13 running backs in the running back room. But we all know how physical the SEC is, football in general. And now you're having, it shocks me, Georgia having to go into the portal to find a running back. But I think that, look, where are the star running backs? That, you go back, in the case of Auburn, that picture, I think before the Iron Bowl, of those 5 receivers, the 5th being Ryan Williams, who, if you asked me to bet a sack full of crystals on it, I think he ends up at Auburn. But 20 years ago, that's 5 running backs. So, Jordan, it looks to me like the message has trickled down to the high school level. You might have 3 years, 4 years in the NFL. And if you go to college, get out after 3 and be on a team where you don't have to carry the ball more than 12 or 15 times a game. That's kind of where we are. Maybe that's why we're not having the superstar. I mean, DeAndre Swift, St. Joseph's High School up there in Philadelphia, and he's in the league now. But golly, it's hard not to see it at Auburn or Georgia, Alabama, a superstar 1,500, 2,000 yard back. It's just it doesn't look right. But then you look at the receivers, and that kind of maybe that's why.
I think so, and I think it's kind of how the game has changed with teams being more willing to open things up. You know, I think you look at Georgia these last few years, you really haven't had a ton of games where they're just like, we're going to pound the rock, we're going to run it 40 times and just grind out games. That's just not really how they play anymore. But I do think it benefits backs. One, they have a whole lot more, tread on the tires by the time they get to the NFL because they're not, being run into the ground. I think it's a situation where those running backs understand it. And that's a big thing that I've been struck by when you talk to guys at Georgia. I think about Kendall Milton these last few years.
Mm-hmm.
He's been, he was asked at one point, waiting in the wings behind the guys like DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh, some of those running backs. And he said, that's understood when you come to Georgia. You have to wait your turn, and you get better in the process, and you get better while you wait. And it paid off big time for Kendall Milton. He's a guy that I thought definitely had his best season as a Bulldog as a senior. Broke off some really big games. The Ole Miss game, he only had like 9 carries and was averaging something like 12, 15 yards a carry. I mean, he played really well. Remains to be seen when exactly he'll be drafted, and that kind of speaks more to just where running back is and, knowing that it's devalued at this point in the league. But I think it benefits guys well. They come to Georgia knowing they're not going to play right away, and especially if you come right now, look at those 3 freshmen. Think about signing 3 running backs in the same class. That's pretty heavy, heavy lifting, and guys having to separate themselves not only from those more experienced backs, but also guys in their own class. But they kind of come in understanding what's being asked of them, and they're going to wait their turn, try to learn what it takes, and see if they can get on the field.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the top 10 running backs all time in the NFL, I'm not sure how many of them are over 5'9" or 5'10". You think about Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Damian Tomlinson at TC, played in the league. They're not these big. Then there's Derrick Henry, who's 6'9". He's 6'3" or 6'4". And Brandon Jacobs from Napoleonville, Louisiana, played at Auburn, but it was a crowded backfield. You had Trey Smith out of Tampa. You had Cadillac. You had Ronnie Brown. Brandon Jacobs goes to Southern Illinois and has a hell of an NFL career, 6'4", 270. We don't see those guys anymore. Guys like that are edge rushers now. That kind of what's happening. I mean, if you look at the Big 12, how many great interior defensive linemen do they produce? But they've got edge rushers because that's all they do in that league. Is the SEC basically morphing into what the Big 12 has been, but with just better athletes on 2 and 3 deep rosters?
It's you could argue the case, but I think you could also say really the game of college football in the whole has evolved, and still there's some. The thing that gives me pause when you compare it to the Big 12 is that I think the knock for so long of the Big 12 was they don't play any defense, and I think you're still seeing some strong defense played in the SEC, Alabama last few years, Georgia as well. But I mean, it is, it's not my dad's SEC. Like we said, it's not, them just lining up Bo or Herschel or whoever and just grinding out yards. Emmitt Smith too. It's one of those things where they're going to air it out and let guys go to work. Those quarterbacks, you don't see, I even think about like a decade ago, think about how much was talked about A.J. McCarron as a game manager. He's just not going to put you in a bad situation. There's not a lot of quarterbacks I would point to in the SEC now and say, well, that guy's a game manager. He may not be a game manager. He may just not be a good quarterback. We saw a few of those last season at some of the SEC schools. But, yeah, I mean, the game's changed dramatically. It's one of those things that these coaches, they have to evolve with the times, and the good ones learn how. And the guys who are unwilling to change, most of the time, they're not around for very long.
All right, I'm going to throw this one to you, Jordan, and then Brendan, get your answer. Nick Saban was so big when he was coaching that he transitioned with Lane Kiffin's help 14, 15, and 16, 3 different quarterbacks, and won the SEC 3 years in a row and made the playoff 3 years in a row. Won a national championship, lost one, and 1 year got knocked out in the semifinals by eventual national champion Ohio State. Is Kirby Smart that big now that if he decided, okay, we're going to go back to a different kind of offense the way it was 15 years ago, you think he can move the needle?
Well, I think it's more of understanding what you have to do more so than what you want to do, because I think he has evolved a little bit. I mean, think about what he inherited at Georgia. They rode Nick Chubb and Sony Michel super hard on offense, and I mean they should have, because those were 2 guys that wound up being picked.
I would have.
Yes, that was the smart thing to do. That was not very hard to do, but think about how much things changed. They had Jim Chaney. It was okay. I think it kind of tailed out toward the end, and he leaves to go to Tennessee. They promote James Coley. It doesn't work. Then they turn to an NFL guy. They go get Todd Monken, a guy that had been around the league and had experience also coaching in college football, had been a former head coach of Southern Miss. And, I mean, they opened it up a little bit. It wasn't that, we're going to lean on our top 2 backs and just grind this out. And, we may take a few deep shots over the course of a game. They had guys that came in, and you even saw it with the personnel. I don't think JT Daniels would have transferred from USC to Georgia saying, okay, I'm going to hand the ball off 35, 40 times a game. He's done a very good job of understanding what it takes, and I think some of that is watching a guy like Nick Saban who, basically said, is this what we want college football to be? And basically everybody said yes, and he said okay, and he decided he'd make his version of it better than everybody else's. I think coaches understand, especially think of it with both those situations with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, 2 defensive coaches. They get to see what hurts their defenses, what gives defenses problems. I think they're smart enough to understand, to recognize that, and to be willing to change. And it's really benefited Georgia. And we saw what it meant for Alabama once they made those changes.
Yeah. Brendan, along that line, you think Kirby Smart's big enough? And I mean, really, who's the bigger coach? Is he the coach in college football now? I mean, how is he not?
I that's why I asked the question earlier. Is that how they were perceived up there in Georgia? Because I mean, to me, it's just a no-brainer. I think he's just got. I think it's indicative of the fact that we're seeing not this big fallout. They're not seeming to experience this fallout from NIL, from transfer portal. Everything seems intact, regardless of the outcome from this season. And to me, that's leadership, right? And that's top down sort of. What you're going to believe that your career as an athlete is going to be secure with this guy, that if you're a part of this lineage and if you're going to be a Kirby Smart player, that that you've earned it. And that's what Saban did. That's why he could stack 3 and 4 guys at key skill positions and then say, hey, truly we just reload, right? Yeah. Because the guy's like, no, it's worth it for me to wait 2 years, because I know he's going to be here, right? Because college coaching is as much as of a turntable than the transfer portal these days, and B, that that you're going to get the best coaching at the skill position coaches, as well as you're going to get like I said, your career is sort of is secure and safe, and I think that will always reign supreme and then you're going to have a shot to play for the national title. Let's be honest. Like you're going to have a shot in the dance. Like, and that means everything, because that's playing time, that's being on TV, that's, all those things that come along with it. And I think that's hard to find in college sports. And I think that's what Saban had. And that's why we're seeing this, recruiting fallout where guys are like, hey, that's why I was coming to Bama. Like I was coming there to play for Saban. And Grimsley leaving now, coming to Florida, and a whole list of other guys that are coming out. There's no way you can replace, a Saban there. And I think there's the same with Kirby Smart, because they built that program, right? and their mindset and their mind's eye. This is how we're going to be it. And it is not easy to do that. And I think that's what makes him special. That's why, it's like what you're asking me, how do I feel about Urban Meyer, right? It's like, it's really going to be tough to have another Urban Meyer, just like there's tough to have another Saban. And I think Kirby's the same way. Yeah.
Jordan, I mean, I like that, what he said just now. And I'm looking, and Kirby Smart's only 47 years old. I mean, he jumped out, he pulled out of the driveway doing 95 and is not slowed down. He's just relentless. And now you're bringing Travarius Robinson up there, who played at Auburn. You got Del McGee up there, who played at Auburn from Columbus, Baker High School. You had Glenn Schumann. You got Will Muschamp. You got Mike Bobo. I mean, he's got a staff that it's hard to beat this staff. And people can argue all they want. Did they get it right in picking the 4 teams for the college football playoff? Alabama went from 8 to 4, and I picked them because I took the trend to beat Georgia, but I thought Georgia would fall at worst to 4, and we'd still have Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and Michigan would be the 4 teams. It didn't work out that way, but I did pick Michigan to beat Washington because they're so good on both sides of the line of scrimmage. If Georgia would have played Washington, what do you think would have happened?
I think that Georgia would have won because of the line of scrimmage. But I will say, part of me with that Washington-Michigan game, I can't help but wonder what it would have looked like had Michael Penix been healthy. Because I think it was very clear, probably by that second half, he was hurt. Took that shot to the ribs. I mean, he was trying to grind through it because there were times that Georgia's secondary was susceptible to big plays. You saw that in the SEC title game, Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond made some plays along the way. So, it's one of those things you can do hypotheticals, and that's what this time of year is perfect for, having hypotheticals. I think Georgia would have won it, but I'm not sure they would have been going away with it, especially if Penix was healthy, because those receivers that Washington had, that was a super deep group. And Georgia's pretty good in the secondary, but they had some holes in that secondary, guys, that would have been tested in a big game like that.
They would have. Listen, Jordan, I know you got a big day ahead of you, and talk about your podcast, how people can follow you. And as always, thank you so much for sharing your time with us on Sidelines.
Appreciate you guys. Dogs247.com on Twitter, at Jordan Davis Hill on Twitter, at Dogs247. Go over to the Dogs247 YouTube page, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll do our live podcast, the Junkyard Dogcast. Going to talk about that Caleb Down news I mentioned earlier. More of the offseason stuff, and mentioning Georgia basketball. They got 13 wins already, trying to make some noise, and playing LSU later tonight in Athens. So I'll be out there at that. Should be a fun one.
So you're covering the basketball as well as the football.
Definitely.
My apologies, because we didn't. I wanted to get into that, but I didn't know. Okay, next week we're going to be talking some Georgia basketball, and good luck tonight with LSU. That'll be a fun one. This is an incredible time of year, but one thing we know for sure is football never stops. But Jordan, we'll see you next week. Thanks.
All right, appreciate it.
You bet. Brendan, I love that conversation. You talked about now ATN. Is he from Louisiana?
I don't know.
The running.
I mean,
back.
I mean,
Travis
I don't know
Etienne's
for
brother,
sure.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's his brother too.
They're both from. I meet Louisiana somewhere around there. Yeah.
Louisiana. Yeah,
Well, now just for the record, Tanner Stein and Blake Kleinpeter, a couple of our members in the Cherry Farm, are from Lake Charles, DeRidder, Louisiana. Now they're telling me the correct pronunciation. It's not ATN. It's Ashon. So that's.
I don't know. He's not a Gator, so he's just his name is dirt to me. He went to Georgia.
Wait a minute.
I don't care anymore.
He's dead to me. He's dead to me.
I had a hard time spelling his stupid name, anyways. I hope he, goes off and he rides pine.
Yeah, and I tell you what, somebody
that's we talked about it with Urban Meyer. That's the ultimate betrayal, by the way. I was like, Urban was like, I don't even know. Like, there's a lot of guys, like even Spurs, like, well, I can't even have that conversation.
Yeah, and here's the thing,
because then that's the lost in this whole thing is all that.
And it's nothing against Georgia. It's the kid himself. He doesn't realize, he's not thinking, who's he going to go back to if things don't work out at Georgia? He can't go home to Florida and be called a Florida man.
He wouldn't be able to cross over.
and well, look, and real quick, before David Schultz comes on with us, just 30 seconds or less. Steve Spurrier is as Florida as it gets, but he also spent 11 years at South Carolina. How does he do with that? I mean, he still goes to South Carolina, I'm sure, for events and functions and stuff like that, and loves his 11 years he had there, doesn't he?
Oh, he loves his years at Duke. I mean,
okay, all right.
Because if you know his story, I won't go into it. But if you know his story,
I do. It's
not like he was just, hey, he's going to be he went to Duke. Everyone says that's suicide. You're done. Mm-hmm. Like you're not gonna. If you don't, you're not successful at Duke, you're done. And taking that job was a risk, a huge risk. That was his whole career. Now, and people may or may not know that Spurrier won a Heisman at playing at Florida. So, he has that, deep, roots at Florida, but he'll talk about Duke and his teams at Duke. He'll talk about his teams at South Carolina. He loves his teams because he's a player's coach. He's a real fun interview. Buddy gets him on a lot. So what we'll do is next time he gets him on, we'll play part of those interviews.
Yeah. And
real interesting guy.
Well, what I love about him too is he talks about Duke and how they took that chance on him, and that without that he would have never gotten where he ended up. And that's what one of the things I really admire and respect about Coach Steve Spurrier. Brendan, let's take a quick commercial break before David Schultz joins us. Locked on Sunbelt, folks. Be a subscriber. Not just the Sunbelt, Southern and National College Athletics. David Schultz, one of the hardest working, the James Browne of sports media, social media people. He is constantly, nobody's going to outwork him on social media. We'll be right back, though, after this quick commercial message for the final segment of today's broadcast of Sidelines.
Now more than ever, it is so important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. God bless the USA.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
All right, Rob Browne, let me say that 5338 Goodman Road, Olive Branch, Mississippi. The Vitamin Shop open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m., 8 p.m., Sundays, 10:30 a.m., 7 p.m. You're not going to walk in there and get the blank stare. I don't know, I just work here. They're healthcare and nutritionist specialists. They'll help you out Audrey and I shop there. I buy the goo and the shot blocks for swimming, biking, running. They also have the probiotics. You got one body, one trip to the plate. Make it count. Schultz Cast, Locked On Sunbelt. David Schultz, one of the best guys out there. One of the more requested guests that we have because they said the guy is funny, he's passionate, and he's smart, and he's also constantly putting stuff out on social media. You need to follow him. David, thanks for checking in and joining us. This is our executive producer, Brendan Martin, now down in Ocala, Florida. And so we're trying to make this thing look like professional. That's why we hired a professional.
So I'm not at home. Can you hear me through my computer mic?
Oh yeah, you sound great.
Okay.
You got the Syracuse orange shirt on.
No, it's a red Sunbelt.
Okay.
No, red Chitamacha pullover, the former golf tournament down here. A couple things. First of all, you're making me follow Jordan Hill. That's not very nice. Okay. We need to do that the other way around. Moving on. Second of all, it is ETN. I don't know who told you it's not that. He's from his mother actually lives here in Lafayette, and him and his brother are from Jennings. Yeah. And Brendan, I'm never going to be able to live this down. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie yet, Dumb Money. All right. It's about the whole Reddit and GameStop thing that happened a couple of years ago, right? The whole entire second scene, a 5-minute scene, is how the main character wanted to drink a Hamm's beer. I can't believe it. I'm never going to hear the end of it. He spent he didn't want a Heineken. He wanted a Hamm's beer.
There you go. 30 rack of Hamm's beer. Hey,
these days we're drinking Spurrier's beer right here. He's got his own beer. So he's got it down here.
What's it called? What is Spurrier's beer?
Head beer coach.
Right. Right.
Oh my! Where can we get the 30 rack?
You get it. It's made by First Magnitude Brewing Company here in Gainesville. So they serve it at his restaurant. Got really, top notch restaurant in Gainesville. And I don't get any kickbacks from them or anything like that. But Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, man, it is real. It's a museum of Spurrier. Everything, all his rings, everything. It is awesome, and they got great food. So. And great, they do a lot good stuff for a lot of people. In fact, that's where we're going to have Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier come down in April, and they're going to have we're going to have a talk about what it means to win, how much they hate to lose. Because Spurrier and Meyer just sit around and they can't even have conversations hardly about the losses. Because they just hate it so much, and they're going to sit down. We're going to have a talk on it. I'll get some video clips from that and bring it in. But it's going to be a really great conversation.
I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that. That will be awesome. David, let's talk about right now college basketball, Sunbelt, SEC, AAC. There's 357 teams that can make it to March Madness. That's the greatest sporting event there is, because there's 357 teams that can make it. Everybody loves these underdog, these Horatio Alger stories. And there's always teams from leagues like the Sunbelt that mainstream people don't follow that are really damn good. Again, you're putting content out every day throughout the day. Locked On Sunbelt. There's the graphics up there. That's one of the advantages of having a smart guy like Brendan Martin on here, is he'll put up there Locked On and be a subscriber to your podcast, which is awesome.
Was there a question? Did I miss the question?
I was just telling you how great I was.
No, that's what I did. All right, so talk about the Sunbelt basketball. So Sunbelt basketball has been a little bit interesting. JMU, James Madison, coming off that great football season, started out 14-0, and they made it in the top 20. They had 2 fantastic wins. They beat Michigan State in the opener, and then had a ridiculous, literally last-second win on the road to Kent State. And at the time, Kent State, I believe, had the nation's longest home winning streak, and that may be the game of the year. Although I don't know if you saw the highlights from McNeese the other night, but that was pretty impressive in its own right, at least the finish. And so JMU went on the road, and winning on the road in sports, doesn't matter if it's professional, but especially college, is hard. And they didn't play well against the Cajuns, although they did win that ball game. And then they went on the road to App, and they lost that ball game, and I think they lost to Southern Miss as well. So they've lost a couple of ball games on the road. They're playing Old Dominion tonight, so we'll see how that goes. App State is pretty good. App State is 6-1 in the conference. They only have one. Maybe I don't know if they lost to Georgia State or Marshall. They have one loss. That's about it. But you have a bunch of these teams that were really bad in the pre-conference schedule. Georgia Southern started out 0-12, 0-12, and they're now 4-3 in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State started out, I believe, 4-8. They're 4-3 in the conference. And so you have these teams that, the Sun Belt, it is what it is. It's a one-bid league. So the whole idea of the Sun Belt conference schedule is to get a good seed and then make a run in the conference tournament. The Cajuns won it last year. South Alabama made a run all the way to the finals. They had a shot, but it's generally not like the MAC, who could get two bids. You got to, maybe this year if JMU keeps on winning, right, and maybe if JMU has only 3 or 4 losses and doesn't win the Sun Belt Conference tournament, maybe App State can sneak in, or another at-large or the conference tournament champion can sneak in. But for the most part, it's going to be a one-bid league. Georgia State is having a good season. They started out, under 500, but Jonas Hayes only had 3 wins last year in the Sun Belt. They were 3-15. They're already 4-3 in the Sun Belt. So, and then you have Jeff Jones. It's really sad. A couple of coaches. Jeff Jones had a heart attack while in Hawaii, so he had to step away. And then also, I think he's got cancer, so he's recovering from heart surgery, and going to attend to his cancer. So Old Dominion has struggled with that. And then Cliff Ellis, who with Jim Boeheim's retirement, he was the active leading winningest coach in college basketball, and he stepped away early on in the season, probably just age and stuff like that. So there's some turnover going on, but these games are really good. We've had some really good games this season in the Sun Belt. Not so much Wednesday and Thursday. There's not one matchup Wednesday and Thursday that have 2 teams with winning records, at least overall. A couple of them in the Sun Belt have winning records facing against each other, but you do have JMU and App State playing on Saturday, and that's, I think, on ESPN2, and that's a huge matchup. Troy is also hosting South Alabama on Saturday. Troy lost to South Alabama like a week ago, and now they're getting a second chance at the Jaguars, and that's a big ball game on Saturday as well.
Yeah. Well, college basketball, the fun thing about it is there's games on every night, just about every night of the week. And again, you grew up outside.
Well, did you see? So
Syracuse.
let's go back. Let's go back to this. Did you guys see the McNeese game? I'm not sitting there watching McNeese and Corpus Christi. Just not doing it. All right. But you go down the Twitter thing. This was on Monday. So you go down the Twitter feed, and McNeese apparently went on a 20-0 run from the end of the first half to the beginning of the second half. They started out the second half 17-0. All right. McNeese has won 11 in a row. They're going to host the Southland Conference tournament, and they're going to go to the NCAAs probably. And Will Wade is either going to end up at Michigan or Louisville or something along those lines, right? Will Wade is this great coach. He's been humbled. It's amazing to see, a 35-year-old man mature based on what happened. All right. And he had a big run in with Bob Marlin back when they were both in the NIT, and he actually apologized to Bob, which was very gracious. Okay. So they are losing to Corpus Christi. They're down 18 in the second half. Somehow McNeese misses. They miss 6 of 8 free throws in the last minute and a half. But they don't get 1 offensive rebound. They get 2 offensive rebounds with 3.2 seconds, and they have a putback, and they win that ball game. And that was the talk of Monday night and into Tuesday morning, that this was a ridiculous, unbelievable win. They kept on screwing themselves by missing these free throws, but they ended up winning a ball game. They got to have one of the nation's longest winning streaks at 12.
Yeah. Well, Will Wade is only 35.
Well,
I remember when
I'm sure he was something along the I think it was 35 probably when he took over the LSU job, something along those lines. And it's been a minute, right, since he made the strong ass offer. And so, he's been humbled a little bit, and he accepts that fact. And he's been given a second chance with McNeese, and they have a nice small arena, probably 4,000 or 5,000, maybe 4,500, standing room only, maybe 5,000. And they had a huge crowd. Like during the Saints game for the Cajuns, they came from behind to beat the Cajuns, down by 13 in the second half. They're a team. That's a team that no one's paying attention to, guys, that if they get the right seeding, like maybe not a 15 or 16 seed, they could knock off a team that's lesser known. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's crazy. I'll tell you
this.
this. I messed this up. Okay. I knew, and I'm so upset about this, right? I knew they were going to I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and say I knew they were going to beat Michigan. I knew they would cover against Michigan. I knew because nobody's paying attention to McNeese outside of Lake Charles. It's just, they don't get any coverage anywhere. And so they were going to be a double-digit underdog to Michigan. And I was in Florida, and I forgot to place the bet. So I absolutely would have had them covering. You sit here and tell you now that I would have had a little bit on the money line, but why not? Because it would have been like 4 or 5 to 1. And when you know it, they did. I actually said it on Locked On Sunbelt with the live ad for FanDuel. Watch that Michigan McNeese thing, and I forgot to do it, but they did. They beat Michigan. So that's a team. That's a team that, if you're not careful, is going to knock somebody off in the NCAA tournament.
That's what I love about
5-12 or something.
Well, having you on here is that you get an early idea of some of these teams that you're going to be hearing a lot about in March. And the pronunciation for ATN, Ashawn, comes from Tanner Stein and Blake Kleinpeter, 2 members of the Cherry Farm who are from DeRidder. And Tanner's grandfather, his mother's the CEO of Stein Home and Lumber. He keeps telling me it's Ashawn, but it's ATN.
No,
what is it? How does
Ashawn?
Yeah, see, that's how Cajuns, they want everybody to be
It's not
Ashawn.
It is not Ashawn.
Yeah. Okay.
It is not even close.
It's not even close to that.
Tanner, if you're listening, and Blake,
you're telling me the guys in Jacksonville are getting it wrong? Are you telling me the guys in Jacksonville are getting it wrong? Come on, it's not.
Yeah, they sometimes like to take ownership of those names.
No.
All right, let's switch gears now and talking basketball. You growing up in what, Oswego, right outside of Syracuse?
I grew up in Syracuse. I grew up just outside
in
of Syracuse.
Okay. Yep. So you mentioned the other day, and I want to talk a little NFL. And watching that game, you're a Bills fan, I would bet.
No.
Okay. Well,
Patriots fan.
That was hard. Okay, heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, their fans are so damn loyal. I remember 4 straight Super Bowls with Marv Levy in the early 90s. Scott Norwood's damn thing goes wide right in the game.
Get closer than 48 yards, but go ahead.
Yeah. But what talk about the Bills Mafia and Syracuse, that's obviously their team. How far is Syracuse?
Syracuse
from
is 2.5
Buffalo?
hours. Syracuse is 2.5 hours. So it used to be when I was a kid, and they used to play. So the reason I'm a Patriots fan is because, in the mid. First of all, my father wasn't the biggest of all football fans, professionally, anyways. Yeah. But so in the mid mid 70s, I just missed OJ in Buffalo. He was already gone. I missed Namath with the Jets, and Joe Pisarcik was the quarterback of the Giants. Not gonna like them. At first, I liked Washington because Art Monk went there, and I saw him play for Syracuse. And then by the time Joe Morris got to the Giants, I was already a Patriots fan. So back in the day, the train, they used to play in downtown Buffalo, and so the train would come from either New York or Albany, and people would get on the train early in the morning in Albany, come through Syracuse, and get off at the train station, and it would be a day of it, right? They'd go to the game, go to Buffalo. It's a 1 o'clock game, so you get on the train at, I don't know, 7 or something like that, and you're in Buffalo by 10:30, 11. Get off the train, go to the game, come back, and you're back that night. So that used to be a thing back in the day. They don't have anything else. It's kind of a one-horse town. They have the Sabres, but they don't matter. They haven't been good since they got screwed. Dominic Hasek with Hull in the crease. He was in the crease. So these people
they like to pretend they have barbecue at like Dinosaur Barbecue or something like that. I've spent some time.
That's a Syracuse thing. Yeah, that's a Syracuse. The part. Hey, that's pretty good barbecue. That's easy on that. Right. Dinosaur Barbecue is pretty good.
I'm never going to tell you barbecue's good in New York. It's just like I think I will be kicked. I will be kicked. I have. I'll be kicked out of the South. You understand that, right? Well, they literally drive me right up to the border, and they say you need to never come back, you Yankee, and then I'll be done.
So bring it back with you. If you brought some pulled pork from the Dinosaur or some ribs, you'd be able to have.
It's the thing with you New Yorkers, man. You guys, it's always like the best there, the best bagels, the best water, the best lox, the best stuff. It's all the thing down there.
But here's the thing, Brendan. the reason you have the best bagels is because you have the best water. Those
I
two
know,
things
I
go
know.
hand
It's,
in hand.
you
And
guys
probably the
realize that.
pizza with the dough. Well, anyway,
I know.
so
Wait, David, I got to throw this in. I think I saw Dinosaur Barbecue on Guy Fieri drive-ins, and
Oh
diners.
yeah, it's
Sure.
huge.
So
Yeah.
it's a
God,
Syracuse,
that
it's a
place
Syracuse
looks
thing,
really
but
good. Yeah.
they made it into New York City. He was
Yeah.
very much into Syracuse only, but it's a Syracuse thing, and it's in Rochester, maybe in Buffalo, I don't, in Albany.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah.
Buffalo. That's where I
So-
had it. Was in Buffalo. Yeah.
In Buffalo. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So so they're offering people $20 an hour to come shovel, right? And people are making a big deal out of it, like they're being cheap. $20 an hour ain't cheap. That's pretty good.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not-
Yeah.
right. And you're not
It is.
shoveling 8 hours a day every day for 40 hours a week. So you're gonna go out there and have a little fun. The weather was much better the second weekend. And it's a lot of fun. Think about it, if you go to Buff State or Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Or UB. Now I could go out there and go shovel for 3 hours and be part of this thing. They probably should have given them standing room only tickets or something along those lines. But the Bills it is part of the fabric of the community. All right. It should be noted because of the weather, and people got this wrong, right? It is, 10 miles south. So a friend of mine, somebody who I went to high school with, Orchard Park, about 10, 15 miles south of downtown Buffalo. So this guy, there was it wasn't last year. There was a huge snowstorm in like 15, and he lives down there. He lives down in the southern suburbs. He got stuck in a funeral home for 48 hours, and he is somehow updating this on Facebook. And somehow he got some plow or truck to come rescue him, and they got stuck. And the best they could do, they literally walked a mile, and then it was clear. So somehow he got out of this, but that's
that lake. That lake effect snow is crazy.
Storm can get it crazy. Whereas downtown Buffalo, you get a little dusting and then you clear it. Whereas that's not what happened at Orchard Park a couple of times. So it really is it's a community thing. There's no NBA. There's no Major League Baseball. They don't, they don't have they got a G5, with Buffalo. Buffalo Bulls, football and basketball. If the Sabres were any good, that would be a big deal. But they haven't been good, as we mentioned, in forever, right? That's 20 years going back to Hasek, right? Is that 99?
Yeah.
So the Bills are the thing, and it is excruciating. As somebody, who as a Patriots fan, even during the days when Brady was leading them to Super Bowls, I just want to play in that AFC Championship game. If I get to that second week of the playoff, I'm having a pretty good year. All right. Most likely, I'm going to play somebody that's really good. I may get lucky and get somebody else knocked off the way Detroit did. And all I got to do is win one game, and I'm playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And the Bills didn't even have that. It's really disappointing. There's a lot, and the Bills fans are this, right? These are kind of people. Tyler Bass had to take down his social media because he's getting death threats.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, and yet we get Bills Mafia that are donating. He's got a cat charity, which is strange, but okay, his charity is cat. But remember back in the day, their first playoff game in forever was when Andy Dalton, I don't remember who Cincinnati beat, but Andy Dalton led the Bengals to a victory. And that allowed the Bills to make the postseason. Right. And all the Bills are watching it in the locker room after their game that they had won. Bills Mafia made a huge donation to Andy Dalton's charity. Like, he's got nothing to do with Buffalo. And they're giving, I think it raised like 6 figures, maybe more.
Wow.
And so they do that a lot. I think they did that for, Tre'Davious White is this great guy. He's from down here he's actually from northern Louisiana. But he's been a mainstay there, and he's just had 2 devastating injuries, and they always give money to his charity. It really is part of a community. And, when you lose that, now we got to wait. It's not like we get another game this week, and if we lose to Baltimore, okay, we lost to a better team. But we lost at home to a team that we always beat in the regular season, but now we just can't beat them, in the postseason. I'm surprised they're going to keep Sean McDermott when you got Bill Belichick out there. I don't know what's going on.
Bill Belichick he's not that old, but if anything, he's sharp. What is he, 70? I don't know. I mean,
72, right?
Okay, he's the same age as Nick Saban. He's Nick Saban, like you said, not bad for a couple of old croaks.
And that's most other people are retired, right? And certainly most
Yeah.
other people with that kind of money are retired. So
Willie Nelson's not retired.
right.
Hey, by the way, I don't know Calvin Burgess. I've never met him. Do you know him? Have you ever met him?
Who's that?
Snoop Dogg. That's his real name is Calvin Burgess.
Right.
But whoever put that together with Martha Stewart, Snoop Dogg,
right.
and Willie Nelson, that's brilliant marketing. All right, Dave, got to ask you this. Again, you can switch and you cover so much sports in your daily writing and all that you do. You're not limited. You can cover any sport, any team, whatever like that. What right now is the biggest story in sports that people maybe aren't talking about? You're down in Lafayette, Louisiana, hour west of Baton Rouge, not that far from Lake Charles and all like that. But what's cool about you is that when you watch the news, I saw a thing watching, and I'll give credit. Maureen Herron, she's a great actress, Irish, on the series 1923 about Yellowstone. And I've always said what you see on the news, really in the news, it's the other stuff you better find out about. She goes, why are you paying attention to this damn press and politics? He goes, it's just camouflage for what they don't want you to know about. So give us the untold stories in sports that you think are trending or people will be talking about.
Well, we'll find out if the NCAA goes by the wayside. Somewhere along the way, some coach is just going to stick the middle finger up to the NCAA, right? Like, there's no rhyme or reason for who's eligible and who's not. And someone's going to say, we're playing, right? They're like, the NCAA isn't in charge. The NCAA is in charge of basketball championships and the other sports. They're not in charge of football championships. So say Harbaugh doesn't get the Chargers job and he comes back and the NCAA says, you're suspended. He's going to say, no, I'm not. Sorry. And, and then you're going to sue the NCAA and the NCAA is going to lose, all right, as they always do.
Yeah.
So we'll see if the NCAA, we'll see if the Power 5 schools separate. The other thing, the report just came out yesterday that the Cajuns, and this is going to be, I'm sure, a lot of G5 schools. The Cajuns lost $8 million last year. Maybe that was 22. And they're blaming it on like a $500,000 loss of tickets in football. Well, that doesn't make up $8 million. Where'd the other $7.5 million go, right? Yeah. And so it's Florida State doesn't want to be in the ACC anymore because they're making $30 million to the SEC's $50 million, and the Big Ten's making $60 million. So we're going to see something's going to happen with the G5 as well. If the Cajuns are not doing great, other schools that are on that same attendance level and revenue level are going to change. The other thing I'm going to look at, it is very frustrating for me, is you get these communities to pay for these stadiums. And a college thing is usually the state, and the Cajun field is underused. They use it for 6 home games, and then there's the preseason high school football games and maybe a band competition. Like if you get like 20 dates out of this thing, it's not enough. So hopefully they build it to where they can, why aren't we having music acts, right? Why aren't we putting, 30,000 fans in here for musical acts? Easy. But like what the A's, this is a story that I would see. All right, I know it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. The Oakland A's are moving to Vegas. Contact me when they put the shovel in the ground. They got all the approval. They're going, but you let me know when they get the shovel in the ground to build that stadium, because I ain't buying it. I think the A's owner is a shyster. I think the people he's dealing with in Vegas are realize that, and they want a Major League Baseball team. I didn't think the football team in Vegas would work, but it has. I don't think they need a dome stadium in that, right? That's going to be $1 billion. You can't play baseball in Vegas in July. It's brutal out. So I don't think the A's are moving. That's what I think. It seems to be all in one direction, but you call me when they put the shovel in the dirt in Vegas, because where Oakland's going to play is, I don't know. Maybe they'll get a deal back in Oakland, but their lease is up. Like, I think this is the last year of the lease, and If they don't get a deal in Oakland, then I don't know where they're going to play, because Oakland's going to say, you're screwed.
Yeah.
They're not going to do many favors. So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just don't like these. I don't like these major league franchises, and some of these teams are, at their beholden, right? Like Kansas City. They're talking about what that's a story, right? Kansas City is getting 2 new stadiums, right? Like they have this great complex. It's on the border, right? Of Missouri and Kansas, and it's the Chiefs and the Royals, and the stadiums are right next to each other. It's perfect.
Yep. But
they're going to move these downtown. Are they doing both of these? They're putting taxes on sales tax and stuff like that, because these owners. I don't know if Hunt's has any business besides the Chiefs, but these guys don't need. I don't mind if it's like a partnership where the city or developers give the land or something like that, and the city comes back with infrastructure. But I don't think local entities should be paying for billionaires' stadiums. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a me thing.
Yeah. When you're driving on I-70, when we go out to South Dakota pheasant hunting, you go right there on the interstate. There's the baseball Royal Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, that giant parking lot. Perfect. You see it all there, and the Missouri River running through there. You're right. Yeah, that's you, man. I mean, that you just hit us with a lot, and I'll believe it when Oakland moves their team.
I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah,
when I see the cranes from Crane Works or wherever coming in. Hey, look, we've run out of time. Awesome show, and David Schultz, love having you on. There ain't many people like you that can cover as much ground. Talk about your daily show, how people can follow it, and also how they can subscribe to your awesome podcast.
So it's Locked On Sunbelt on YouTube. Please subscribe. You can also find it wherever you get your audio podcast. Today we ranked the Sunbelt East quarterbacks. We previewed tonight's Sunbelt action, and it's these new teams, the Southern Misses, the ODUs, the JMUs, and the Marshalls that actually lead the conference in attendance. So we talked about that, and then tomorrow we'll preview Thursday's action and recap what happened tonight in basketball.
All right, love it, man. Sideline Sports Network. Brendan, awesome show. All of our guests, everybody.
It's Second Scene and Dumb Money is about hams. It's a 5-minute conversation.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it. Thanks, Dave, for coming on.
In the whole movie.
Yeah. By the way, 30 rack at the Walmarts in Wynne, Arkansas. $15.98. It's the beer you've been looking for since 1865.
And an enema. It's perfect.
All right. God bless you, man. We're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.